Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the strange, beautiful, and occasionally disgusting world of ancient sleep. Forget everything Hollywood told you, because in the real ancient world, bedtime wasn't just lights out. It was a social ritual, a survival tactic, and occasionally, a contact sport. So before you tuck in under your cozy duvet, hit that like button if you enjoy history with a side of sarcasm, and drop a comment telling me your weirdest sleep habit. Now dim the lights, silence your phone, maybe grab a snack, though if you were an ancient Egyptian, your midnight snack might have been a handful of fermented barley and a beetle you didn't notice. Let's jump in. You wake up. Not to an alarm clock, not to your cat meowing. You wake up because the Nile is flooding, the clay floor beneath your bed is damp, and there's a mosquito whispering sweet death threats in your ear. The ancient Egyptians didn't just sleep. They engineered sleep. They had wooden headrests instead of pillows. Yes, an actual block of carved wood under your skull. And they swore it kept their necks cool and their hairstyles intact. Now you might be thinking, that sounds awful. And yes, it probably was. But in a world without memory foam, this was the gold standard. Also, lying on a raised bed kept you away from snakes, which I don't know about you, but I'll take a crick in my neck over a cobra snuggle any night. Fast forward to ancient Greece. Here, sleep wasn't just a bodily need, it was a philosophical statement. Aristotle wrote about it, Hippocrates prescribed it, and the Greeks believed that sleep was when your soul took little trips, kind of like astral projection, except sometimes you woke up with bedbugs. Your bedroom might have been a shared sleeping space. Because privacy was for the rich, imagine snoring next to a guy who just had garlic stuffed olives for dinner. Yeah. Oh, and if you were sick, you might head to an Asclepion, a healing temple where priests would interpret your dreams for cures. So you'd lie on a stone slab, fall asleep in a candlelit hall, and hope the gods sent you a prescription instead of a nightmare. The Romans had a strange relationship with sleep. They split it in two. They'd nap in the middle of the day and then sleep in shorter bursts at night. But here's the twist. The richest Romans basically invented the bedroom flex. They decorated their sleeping chambers with marble, silk, and even gold leaf. Because why not show off when literally no one can see you? If you were poor, you slept in a cramped, dark room with your family, livestock, and maybe your neighbor's goat who wandered in. Think of it as Airbnb, but involuntary. Skip ahead a millennium. The Middle Ages were cold, drafty, and dangerous. Sleep happened in two shifts. First sleep after sunset, then a midnight wake-up where people prayed, gossiped, or visited their neighbors for some quiet activities. Beds were communal, not just for couples, but sometimes for entire families or traveling strangers. And yes, this meant you might wake up spooning a sweaty blacksmith you've never met before. Cozy. So what can we take from ancient sleep habits? Pillows are not negotiable, seriously. Sleep has always been social, whether it's ancient Greeks dreaming in temples or medieval families piled together like human lasagna. Nature was the alarm clock. You woke with the sun, the roosters, or the flooding river, not an iPhone ringtone. Maybe the biggest takeaway? Ancient people respected sleep as necessary, not as a luxury to cut down for productivity. They embraced naps, midnight breaks, and dream interpretation long before sleep studies made it trendy. So tonight, when you crawl into bed with your overpriced memory foam pillow and blackout curtains, remember, you are living the dream, literally. Which ancient sleep habit would you survive best? Egyptian wooden headrest, Greek dream temples, or medieval stranger snuggling? Comment below and don't forget to subscribe for more history stories that keep you up, just long enough to fall asleep smarter. All right, you've survived Egyptian neck blocks, Greek dream road trips, Roman goat roommates, and medieval human lasagna. But now, you're stepping into the ancient Persian Empire. Picture this. Massive gardens filled with jasmine, night-blooming flowers releasing perfume into the air, and fountains trickling under a moonlit sky. The royals didn't just go to bed. They staged an entire nighttime theater for the senses. Soft carpets, silver oil lamps, and musicians playing slow, hypnotic tunes until you drifted off. Meanwhile, Outside the palace walls, farmers were rolling up in wool blankets, sleeping under camel hair tents, praying the desert wind didn't bury them in sand. Sleep was either a royal spa or a survival test. No middle ground. Jump over to ancient China, where sleeping was practically a form of spiritual engineering. Beds weren't just furniture. They were carefully placed to align with chai, the life energy. Sleeping in the wrong direction, bad vibes. Sleeping under a beam, invite ghosts. Some emperors slept in rotating beds, not because they were indecisive, but to literally turn away from evil spirits that might find them in the night. The mattresses? Layered silk stuffed with cotton or reeds, embroidered with symbols meant to protect you while dreaming. And here's the kicker. Wealthy families had bed canopies to trap heat in winter, but they also trapped mosquitoes in summer. So imagine roasting alive and being bitten to death at the same time. Now we sail to Mesoamerica, where the Maya had one of the most genius inventions in history, the hammock. Lightweight, breathable, bug-resistant. Basically the Airbnb of the jungle. They tied them high to avoid snakes, scorpions, and the occasional curious jaguar. But here's the thing. If you've never slept in a hammock, you don't just lie down. You wiggle in, rock yourself like a burrito, and pray you don't flip out in the middle of the night and faceplant into the dirt. Hammocks became so practical that Spanish colonizers literally took the idea back to Europe. So yeah, next time you nap in one, thank the Maya, preferably out loud, so your neighbors think you've lost it. Here's something they don't put in textbooks. Ancient people had to defend their sleep. In nomadic tribes, someone always kept watch. In Viking longhouses, weapons hung right next to the bed. And in some African kingdoms, guards literally patrolled outside royal bedrooms all night. Because sleep wasn't just rest, it was vulnerability. The moment you closed your eyes, you were basically saying, I trust no one will stab me. So while we stress about locking our doors and setting the alarm, imagine sleeping in a tent knowing that one bad gust of wind could open your front door to hyenas. Sweet dreams, right? Here's the curveball. Many ancient cultures didn't fight sleep schedules like we do. They synced with nature. Winter meant longer sleeps. Summer meant shorter, lighter rests. No guilt, no 5 a.m. club, no pretending they could run on 4 hours of sleep and coffee. They understood something modern science now confirms. Your body knows best. If the sun's down for 14 hours, maybe you are meant to dream a little longer. So maybe the ancient world wasn't so primitive. They just weren't trying to win the productivity Olympics. And here's the wildest part. We barely scratched the surface. We haven't even gotten to Aztec dream magic, Bedouin desert star maps, or the sleep cults of ancient India. But that's for next time. For now, drop a comment telling me if you had to pick one, palace of perfume in Persia, ghost-proof bed in China, or jungle hammock with the Maya, which would you survive? Hit subscribe, and remember, sleep like an ancient tonight, just without the scorpions. All right, get comfortable, but maybe keep one eye open. We're in Tenochtitlan, heart of the Aztec Empire, and here dreams weren't just random brain static, they were messages from the gods. You wake in the middle of the night, sweating under a woven maguey blanket. Outside, the air smells of burning copal incense and wet stone. You just dreamed of a jaguar. To you, it's just a big cat. But to the Aztecs, this is serious business. A jaguar in your dream might mean you're destined for battle, or that you're marked for sacrifice. There was even a class of spiritual specialists, the Tlamatinimi, who interpreted dreams. You'd tell them your vision, and they'd tell you if you were blessed or doomed. So yeah, imagine waking up from a nightmare and immediately having someone say, "Ah yes, this means your death will be swift and violent. Sleep well." From the humid temples of the Aztec world, we step into the vast, bone-dry desert. The Bedouin tribes of Arabia had no digital clocks, no blackout curtains, only the stars. You're lying on a thin wool mat, wrapped in a rough camel hair blanket. The sand radiates the day's heat into your back while a dry wind stings your cheeks. Above you, the Milky Way, blazing so bright it feels close enough to touch. But here's the thing, The Bedouin didn't just stargaze for fun. They used the night sky as a calendar, a map, and a sleep aid. The rising of certain constellations told them when to wake for travel, when to rest, and even when to pack camp before raiders arrived. No insomnia here. When your mattress is the earth itself and your alarm clock is Orion's belt, you learn to trust the universe's schedule. Now, we travel to ancient India, where sleep wasn't only for mortals, it was a doorway to the divine. Enter the practice of yoga nidra, yogic sleep. Imagine lying perfectly still, half asleep but fully aware, floating in a dream while still controlling it. Gurus claimed it could let you touch the realm of gods without leaving your body. In some temple communities, devotees slept in sanctuaries dedicated to Vishnu, believing the deity would enter their dreams with guidance or blessings. Others took it further, fasting, chanting, and sleeping on kusha grass mats thought to channel spiritual energy directly into the body. And yes, there were even sleep competitions during festivals. Not for how much you could sleep, but for how deeply. Whoever woke most refreshed was considered spiritually superior. Try explaining that to your boss when you're late for work. We touched on Greek healing temples earlier, but here's the weird, mystical part we skipped. You've made a pilgrimage to the temple of Asclepius. For days, you've eaten nothing but honey cakes and barley water to purify yourself. Tonight, you lie on a cold stone floor, surrounded by other seekers. The air smells of olive oil lamps and the faint, musky scent of snakes, the sacred animals of the god. You drift into a dream, and there he is, Asclepius, whispering advice, maybe even performing dream surgery, cutting away your illness in your sleep. When you wake, you tell the priests. They write it down, interpret it, and give you instructions. Sometimes those instructions were logical. Sometimes they were things like, go bathe in the river at midnight for 30 days while chanting to the moon. Modern medicine says placebo. Ancient Greece said miracle. Who's to say they're wrong? Not all ancient sleep stories are comforting. Many cultures feared that the night was crawling with things you couldn't see. In medieval Europe, people told tales of the mare, a demon who sat on your chest, stealing your breath while you slept. In ancient Mesopotamia, the demon Lilitu was blamed for night terrors, fevers, and, let's just say, romantic hauntings. To protect themselves, people slept with charms, amulets, or even iron knives under their pillows. Some burned herbs at night to keep bad spirits away, though that also filled your tiny bedroom with smoke and made you cough yourself awake. Imagine being so scared of a bad dream that you sleep clutching a dagger, and we think horror movies give us insomnia. Here's where it gets fascinating. Many ancient societies naturally used polyphasic sleep. They didn't do one 8-hour block, they broke it up. First sleep, midnight activity, second sleep, or long naps plus short nights. They didn't fight it, they adapted. Midnight wasn't wasted time. It was for prayer, study, storytelling, or other activities that made the cold hours pass quickly. And without artificial light, their bodies synced perfectly to the seasons. Winter meant hibernation-like rests. Summer meant short, intense sleeps. It was nature's calendar ticking inside their veins. We like to think we've perfected sleep, memory foam, blackout curtains, white noise machines. But the truth is, ancient people knew something we've lost. Sleep isn't just rest. It's a journey, a ritual, a connection to nature, to the gods, to each other. So maybe tonight, turn off the lights early, step outside, look up at the sky, and for one moment, pretend you're lying under the stars in a desert, or dreaming in a temple, or swinging in a jungle hammock. No alarms, no deadlines, just the ancient rhythm of breath and night. Now, comment below. Which ancient sleep ritual would you actually try? And which one would you avoid like a nightmare? You've survived dream temples, desert stargazing, and hammock acrobatics. But now we're heading north, far north, where winter doesn't just shorten the days, it swallows them whole. In Viking settlements, sleep wasn't a nightly ritual, it was a seasonal strategy. When the frost set in and daylight dropped to just a few hours, people would sleep a lot. We're talking multiple naps, heavy fur bedding, and entire days spent in half-dream states while the wind howled outside like an angry god. You're in a longhouse, smoky from the central hearth. The smell of dried fish and tarred wood seeps into your clothes. Around you, families, warriors, and livestock huddle under animal skins. Snoring, constant. Privacy, none. And yet there's a comfort to it, knowing you're part of a pack, shielded from the ice outside, resting until the sun decides to return. Now we sail thousands of miles to the islands of the Pacific. Here, the moon was the ultimate timekeeper. On clear nights, Polynesians often slept outside on raised platforms, woven from palm and pandanus leaves. The air was warm, carrying the scent of salt and blooming flowers. You could hear the ocean breathing in the dark. But this wasn't just about comfort. Many communities believed the moonlight itself carried mana, spiritual energy that nourished the sleeper. A night under a full moon was seen as cleansing for the body and mind. Sure, there were mosquitoes, sudden rain, and the occasional curious crab climbing onto your bed. But honestly, imagine falling asleep to nothing but starlight and waves. Back in the Persian Empire, we've already seen royal perfume gardens. But here's the next level. Sleep security teams. If you were important enough, your bed was surrounded by attendants who would literally watch you all night. They'd adjust your blankets, fan you if it got hot, and fend off anything from thieves to bugs. Sounds luxurious, until you realize you're trying to fall asleep while three strangers stand perfectly still, staring at you like extras from a horror movie. Ancient problems, right? Too much attention can be just as weird as not enough. In Aboriginal Australian tradition, sleep isn't just a break from waking life. It's a return to dream time, the sacred realm of creation. When you close your eyes, you're not simply resting. You're stepping into the timeless space where the world was shaped by ancestral spirits. Dreams are not fantasy here. They're instructions, stories, even warnings, passed down from beyond. Imagine sleeping on soft sand, warmed by the day's sun, a fire crackling nearby, your head all pillowed on a rolled cloak. The stars are so bright they feel like part of the camp. You wake before dawn, remembering every detail of your dream. Because in this world, it might shape what you do that day, or for the rest of your life. We touched on Roman sleep habits before, but here's the decadent twist. Elite Romans had dedicated nap rooms in their villas. These were small, dimly lit chambers, cool in summer, warmed by braziers in winter, walls painted with calming scenes, ceilings high enough to make you feel like a god lounging in the clouds. The goal? Absolute sensory luxury. No noise, no light, and sometimes servants whisper reading poetry while you drift off. Meanwhile, outside, the streets were chaos. Vendors shouting, carts rattling, public baths steaming. Inside your nap room? Silence. Across all these worlds, Vikings to Polynesians, Persians to Aboriginal storytellers, there's one thread that runs through them all. Sleep wasn't an afterthought. It was part of the culture, the religion, the survival plan. They didn't fight sleep like we do. They surrendered to it, fully, unapologetically, sometimes extravagantly. Maybe the real lesson isn't about hammocks, fur blankets, or moonlight. It's that they made space for sleep in a way we've forgotten. And maybe it's time we reclaim it. We start in medieval Japan. You're a samurai and you don't get the luxury of deep, dream-filled sleep. Why? Because at any moment, you might be called to fight. Samurai mastered light sleep, resting in a seated position or lying with one hand, always on their weapon. The futon beneath you is simple, cotton padding on a tatami mat, and the room is sparse, lit only by a paper lantern swaying in the night breeze. You train yourself to wake instantly without grogginess. No stretching, no 5 more minutes. The moment you hear a sound, you're upright and ready. It's the opposite of cozy, but in a world of sudden duels, it's survival. Back to Egypt, but not the wood headrest version we've seen before. This is the summer hack of the wealthy. The Nile's heat was brutal, so elite households had beds woven from plant fibers that allowed airflow underneath. At night, servants poured cool water onto the floor so that as it evaporated, it acted like ancient air conditioning. You lie there hearing the croak of frogs and the distant splash of fishermen. The cool breeze drifts up through the bed, and for a moment, you almost forget there's no such thing as ice cream yet. Now we're with the Mongols, sleeping inside a yurt, a circular tent covered in felt. The night air outside is freezing, but inside the space is warm from a central hearth. The smell of smoke mixes with horse leather and milk tea. Everyone sleeps on mats or low beds arranged around the wall, feet toward the fire. The center is kept clear, ready for cooking, storytelling, or if needed, packing up and leaving in minutes. The beauty of nomadic sleep? Home follows you wherever you go. You can wake under a different sky every week, but your bed still feels familiar. Now we climb, literally, to the heights of the Andes. The Inca didn't just live in mountains, they slept in them. Your bedroom is a small stone hut with walls thick enough to block the icy winds. You curl under layers of llama wool blankets, the smell of the animals lingering in the fibers. At this altitude, the air is thin, so sleep comes slower. But dreams? They're vivid. Many Inca believed the mountains themselves sent visions to those who rested in their shadow. You wake at dawn, frost on the door, clouds drifting below your village. The world feels smaller from up here, and sleep feels like a gift the mountains allow you to borrow. Here's a twist. You're in an Ottoman city, and you've just rented a bed for the night. Travelers without homes would visit special inns called caravanserais. Some offered full rooms, but the cheaper option? A simple bed in a shared hall, surrounded by strangers. You pay, climb into your space, and lie listening to the mix of snores, foreign languages, and the soft shuffle of someone sneaking out before dawn. It's not luxury, but in the age of long trade routes, these communal sleeping halls were a lifeline for merchants and wanderers alike. What strikes you about all of these places, Japan, Egypt, Mongolia, the Andes, the Ottoman streets, is how sleep adapts. It bends to war, to weather, to mountains, to markets. It changes shape depending on what you need to survive. And in every case, it's more than just closing your eyes. It's a ritual, a rhythm, a way of life. You're in an ancient walled city. The day was tense. Enemy scouts spotted on the horizon, soldiers double-checking the gates. But now, night has fallen. You lie in your small chamber, lit by a single oil lamp. The walls smell of damp stone. Outside, the distant creak of wooden siege engines blends with the occasional bark of a guard dog. Sleep comes but lightly. You know that at any moment, a horn blast could wake the entire city. And if that happens, you'll grab a weapon and run to the wall, still half in your dreams. In a siege, sleep wasn't comfort. It was stolen, snatched in fragments, always with one ear listening for the sound that meant life or death. Now we're at sea in the ancient Mediterranean. Your ship is a creaking wooden trireme, and the captain says the night will be calm. It's not. You're wedged between crates of olives, trying to sleep while waves slam against the hull. Salt spray drips through the deck boards, soaking your blanket. The air smells like wet rope and fish. Every groan of the wood, it makes you wonder if this will be the night the sea decides to claim you. And yet, you still drift off, rocked like a child, because even sailors needed their hours, no matter how unforgiving the water. The desert is silent at night, too silent. You're a caravan merchant, camped among your camels. The fire burns low, and the sky is a black dome pricked with stars. You've been warned about raiders, men who move under the cover of darkness, striking fast and vanishing before dawn. So the camp sleeps in shifts. You curl up in your blanket, but your dreams are fractured, half story, half sentry duty. Every rustle of sand, every creak of leather straps sounds like danger. Morning comes and you've barely rested, but in the desert, staying alive matters more than sleeping well. In ancient Pompeii, people lived with Mount Vesuvius towering above them, quiet for years, almost forgotten. You go to bed on a warm summer night, the air smelling faintly of sulfur from the nearby hot springs. Your bed is simple, wool blankets over straw. You have no idea that tomorrow, the world will end in ash. It's a reminder that ancient sleep could be stolen not just by human threats, but by the earth itself. One moment, peace. The next, fire and stone. Some dangers weren't physical. They were supernatural. In parts of West Africa, people feared night spirits that could steal your soul if they found you sleeping alone. Villages would gather to sleep communally, fires burning bright to keep the darkness at bay. Children would be told not to wander at night because the dark has ears. Even if you didn't believe in the spirits, the sound of wind in the tall grass at midnight could make you doubt yourself. Here's the thing, danger during sleep wasn't an exception in the ancient world. It was the norm. Whether it was war, storms, raiders, or unseen forces, people learned to rest lightly, wake instantly, and never take safety for granted. And maybe that's why ancient people valued their rituals so much. Those little comforts weren't just about rest. They were about reminding yourself that, for this night at least, you'd made it. Hey you, yes you, still here with me in this candlelit corner of history. I see you blanket pulled up, eyes heavy, but somehow your curiosity has outlasted even the ancient oil lamps we've been talking about. First of all, thank you. Seriously, you've stayed through fleas, fish oil fumes, and bedtime rituals involving way too much fermented goat milk. So either you're a dedicated history lover or you've lost control of your autoplay button. Either way, I appreciate you. Now let's see what the ancients would teach us next. You're lying there in your reed mat bed, trying to drift off when you hear a sound. Not the modern hum of a refrigerator, not the buzz of your phone on silent. No, this is the hollow thud of a distant drum. In ancient Egypt, that could mean a nighttime procession priest walking in solemn steps toward the temple, chanting prayers to guide the souls of the dead. You pull the blanket tighter, not out of fear, but because you know sound travels differently at night here. It's deeper, heavier, like it's crawling under your skin. You think about how, for them, night wasn't just for sleeping. It was a time when the veil between worlds was thinner. Some people wanted to be awake then. Dream interpreters, for instance, believed that the quietest hours brought messages from the gods, and you could literally hire someone to decode your dreams. Imagine Venmoing someone today to tell you what that nightmare about giant geese meant. We jump across time now to ancient Rome. You're in a bustling insula, a crowded apartment block where walls are thin enough that you can hear your neighbor cough. 3 apartments over. You'd think that with all the noise, people would fight for sleep. But no, many Romans chose to stay up late drinking watered wine, gossiping, or reading scrolls by smoky lamplight. In fact, Pliny the Elder claimed that the quietest hours after midnight were the best for writing. Which is funny because right now you can hear a donkey braying outside, and someone 2 floors down is yelling about a stolen loaf of bread. Quiet, Pliny, sure. Now, here's something wild the ancients understood that we've almost forgotten. They knew sleep wasn't just one big block of unconsciousness. Ancient Greeks, Babylonians, Chinese scholars, they all recognized segmented sleep. You'd sleep a few hours, wake for an hour or 2, then sleep again until morning. That middle of the night wake period? Not insomnia, normal. Some used it to meditate, others to talk to family, some to visit neighbors. And yes, the kind of visit that makes babies 9 months later. Which means, and I'm just saying, that your 3 a.m. doom scrolling might actually be an ancient biological habit. Congratulations, you're accidentally historical. But here's the thing, the ancients didn't fight the rhythm of the night. They embraced it. They adjusted their lives around it. We, on the other hand, shove our bodies into a rigid 8-hour box and call it normal. And maybe that's the biggest lesson they give us: your sleep isn't broken. It's just not built for fluorescent lights, late emails, and alarm clocks that sound like a fire drill. So, as we keep walking through these shadowy corridors of the past, I want you to think about this. If tonight you woke up at 2 a.m., what would you do? Write a poem? Whisper to the stars? Or just reach for your phone? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious how many of you would have been philosophers, and how many would have just been ancient meme lords. Now, we're not done yet. There's one more ancient culture that had sleep rituals so strange, so alien to our modern brains, you're going to either love it or never sleep the same way again. Shall we open that door? Hey, you're still here. Wow, either you're genuinely fascinated or you've fallen asleep with the video still playing. Either way, thank you. Seriously, you could have been doom scrolling Instagram, watching cat videos, or Googling, do ancient beds have bed bugs? Spoiler, yes, and they had no mercy. But you chose to hang out with me, deep in the night, unraveling humanity's oldest bedtime secrets. So let's reward that loyalty. Ready for the next twist? Picture this. It's the middle of the night. Not midnight as we think of it, but the sacred hour in certain ancient cultures. You wake up in your dim clay-walled room. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of olive oil lamps, and, less romantically, your neighbor's goat. This wasn't insomnia. Oh no, this was planned. Ancient people in places like medieval Europe, yes, we're time hopping a bit, and earlier civilizations often had something called first sleep and second sleep. You'd snooze for a few hours, wake up around what we'd call midnight, do whatever you needed to do. I'll let your imagination run wild, and then go back for your second round of shut-eye. Some use this time for prayer, meditation, or even, and this is my favorite late-night gossip, imagine a group of Mesopotamian villagers sitting around in the dark, sipping watered-down beer, trading stories about the guy who accidentally stole someone's sheep. And here's where it gets fascinating. Modern science says this segmented sleep might actually be natural for humans. Your brain gets a mini reboot. Stress levels drop, dreams get weirder and richer. We've lost it now, thanks to electricity and TikTok keeping us awake at 3 a.m. But maybe, just maybe, we'd be saner if we brought it back. Now, between these two sleeps, there was another little ritual. A quick stroll outside. The stars overhead were so sharp, so bright, you'd think someone had poked holes in the black velvet sky. You hear the rustle of the night wind, the far-off bark of a dog, and the distant sound of, well, probably someone arguing over that sheep again. By the time you slip back into bed, woven reeds creaking under your weight, your mind is quiet, your body heavy. Second sleep comes quickly. And when you wake at dawn, the sun spilling gold over the horizon, you feel something modern life rarely gives you. Truly rested. Now, tell me, would you trade your Netflix binges for a shot at first and second sleep? Drop it in the comments. I'm curious if we'd survive without our glowing rectangles. Imagine this. It's the crack of dawn in an ancient Greek village. The mist hasn't lifted yet, and you're being led down a narrow stone path toward a temple. But this isn't a temple for worship. It's a temple for sleep. The priests here aren't chanting hymns all day. They're interpreting dreams. They belong to the cult of Asclepius, the god of healing. And in their world, sleep wasn't just rest. It was a form of diagnosis. Here's how it worked. You'd arrive at the temple after days of fasting, bathing in sacred water, and sometimes being slightly deprived of sleep to make your dreams more vivid. Then you'd lie down in the abaton, a special dark chamber surrounded by the soft, constant murmur of water flowing through stone channels. As you drift off, the priests believe Asclepius himself, or his sacred snakes, yes, snakes, might visit you in a dream, revealing the cure for your illness. In the morning, you'd tell the priest what you saw, and they'd turn it into a treatment plan, maybe herbs, maybe diet changes, maybe a symbolic act to drive out the sickness. Some temples even kept dream logs, scrolls filled with strange patient visions. A man dreamed of a golden rooster who sang until his fever broke. A woman saw herself walking backwards into the sea and awoke healed. Were they placebo effects? Maybe. Or maybe these ancient dream healers knew something we've lost, that the mind, when given the right stage, can coax the body back to health. And there's something oddly comforting in that a society where doctors prescribe more sleep instead of please take these bitter herbs and good luck. Now imagine walking out of that temple, healed or not, the early light spilling across the marble steps, the air thick with the scent of olive trees. For a moment you feel lighter, not because you're cured, but because someone actually listened to your dreams. Picture this. The sun has dipped behind the horizon, and you are standing in the heart of Baghdad during the height of the Islamic Golden Age. The air is warm, carrying a sense of cinnamon, sandalwood, and roasting lamb from the nearby market stalls. But unlike most medieval cities, Baghdad at night is not swallowed by darkness. It glows. From the great palaces to the narrowest alleyways, oil lamps and lanterns are hung in careful rows, their golden light reflected on marble courtyards and turquoise-tiled fountains. Wealthy merchants sponsor public lighting, both as an act of charity and a subtle advertisement of their success. The streets feel alive long after sunset. You can hear poets reciting verses in shaded gardens, musicians plucking the oud in wine houses, and merchants whispering deals under the flicker of flames. Here, bedtime is not just a personal ritual, it's a public performance of culture. People stroll well past midnight, dressed in soft cotton robes and silk slippers, visiting public bathhouses before heading home. Bathing at night is a custom for many. It cleanses the body, cools the skin, and, according to scholars of the time, prepares the soul for peaceful dreams. If you're lucky enough to be part of a wealthy household, your sleeping quarters might be a sumptuous chamber. Walls painted with patterns of stars and moons, floors layered with thick carpets from Persia, and a bed frame carved from fragrant cedar wood. Your mattress is stuffed not with straw, but with cotton, a luxury exported from India and covered with embroidered linens. At your bedside sits a brass tray holding rosewater, dates, and perhaps a small dish of honey for a soothing midnight bite. But sleep here is also shaped by science. Scholars at Baghdad's legendary House of Wisdom study dreams, sleep cycles, and the effects of moonlight on the human mind. Physicians recommended sleeping on your right side for better digestion, and they warned against eating onions or heavy meats before bed. Apparently, it disturbs the clarity of dreams. And here's something fascinating for the city's elite. There were night readers. Imagine someone whose sole job is to sit beside you in the evening, reading poetry or history aloud until your eyes grow heavy. Their voice would flow like warm honey, blurring the line between wakefulness and sleep, turning every night into a gentle farewell to the day. As the hours pass, the city grows quieter. The lamps remain lit, but the music fades. You slip into bed drawing a light woven blanket over your body, while outside a watchman makes his rounds, tapping his staff on the stones to remind everyone the streets are safe. Above you, the sky is velvet black, scattered with stars. Somewhere in the distance, the Tigris River murmurs softly against its banks, its waters carrying the dreams of the city downstream. And in that moment, Baghdad feels like it will never sleep yet somehow. You can. It is a crisp evening in ancient Chang'an, the bustling heart of the Tang dynasty. The night air is cool and fragrant, with osmanthus blossoms drifting from hidden courtyards. Somewhere far beyond the city walls, mountains stand like dark guardians under a silver moon. Here in the Middle Kingdom, bedtime is not just about rest, it is a ritual that balances the body, spirit, and the invisible currents of the world. The first sound you hear is the soft call of the night watchman, beating a wooden clapper to mark the hour. Inside homes, oil lamps flicker behind latticed windows, their warm light casting shadows shaped like cranes and clouds. Every detail is deliberate. In the Chinese understanding of feng shui, the bed must be placed so that the sleeper's head points toward a direction that welcomes harmony and wards off ill fortune. A bed facing directly toward the door is considered a danger. It leaves the soul exposed to wandering spirits. The wealthy sleep on carved rosewood platforms, their mattresses padded with layers of fine silk. For warmth, they use blankets filled with soft goose down. But in the colder months, something more intimate is used, heated jade stones, wrapped in cloth and tucked near the feet. It is believed jade carries protective energy, ensuring not only a warm sleep, but a safe one. And then there are the moon poems. In the Tang era, poetry is the breath of life, and before bed, many recite verses aloud or have them read by a servant or loved one. These poems often speak of longing, distant loved ones, or the haunting beauty of moonlight. One can imagine a scholar leaning on his pillow, looking through an open window as the moon paints the floor with silver light, and murmuring lines that will follow him into his dreams. Sleep itself is timed according to the yin and yang of the body. Physicians and philosophers agree that going to bed too late disrupts the natural balance, draining life energy. Herbal teas of chrysanthemum or jujube fruit are sipped to quiet the mind, while incense, often sandalwood or agarwood, coils upward in thin spirals, carrying prayers into the heavens. But in the countryside, the bedtime rhythm is humbler. Farmers end their day soon after sunset, their homes lit by a single oil lamp. Children curl on woven mats beside the kang, a heated brick bed fueled by embers from the kitchen fire. There is little talk, only the crackle of the hearth, the smell of smoke, and the slow breathing of a family wrapped in the safety of night. As the hours deepen, the city grows silent, save for the distant gongs marking time from the watchtowers. The moon begins its slow descent, its light softening into gray. A scholar might still be awake, lying under his silk quilt, replaying the lines of a poem in his mind. A fisherman by the riverbank dreams of calmer waters. A farmer's child, holding a cloth doll, drifts into a sleep so deep that even the rooster's first calls won't wake him too soon. And so our journey through the nights of the world draws to a close. We have walked through firelit longhouses of Viking warriors, lain beneath the jeweled ceilings of Baghdad, breathed in the incense of Chang'an, and felt the frost creep into medieval peasant cottages. We have seen how sleep, though universal, wears countless faces, each shaped by its own culture, climate, and beliefs. Now the streets are empty and the lamps are dim. In every land we have visited, dreams are beginning to bloom like flowers in darkness. The world exhales, and as we step away from the window of history, we do so quietly so as not to wake them. It is time to close your own eyes. Let the weight of centuries settle over you like a blanket. Listen to the slow heartbeat of the earth itself, unchanged by time. And perhaps tonight, your dreams will carry you back to one of these nights, to the warmth of a kang bed in China, the golden glow of Baghdad, or the starlit stillness of a Viking hall. The journey ends here, but the night continues. First, before we close this journey, let me take a moment to speak directly to you. You, the one still here, still listening, still letting these words drift into the quiet corners of your night. You are the reason this story exists. You've walked with us through ancient streets, crossed oceans of history, and stepped softly into rooms lit only by the flicker of oil lamps. That's not nothing. That's a kind of patience and curiosity that's rare in the restless pace of today. And for that, I thank you. When we began, we weren't just talking about sleep. We were talking about life, the kind of life people lived long before our world of buzzing notifications, streetlights that never sleep, and alarm clocks that command our mornings. Together we imagined candlelit nights, lullabies sung in languages no one speaks anymore, and the rhythm of a world that actually paused when the sun went down. And in those pauses, there was magic. You might have noticed it as we journeyed. Every culture, every century had its own little secrets to ending the day. For some, it was prayer or chanting. For others, a healing drink or the touch of a loved one's hand. Sometimes it was a story told by the fire, the embers glowing like stars fallen to earth. And sometimes it was simply lying still, listening to the wind in the rafters or the slow breath of the person beside you. We've wandered through places where dreams were considered holy messages from gods, ancestors, or the very soul itself. We've seen beds made from stone that somehow still brought comfort, and we've stepped into palaces where the rich rested on silk, believing softness was a symbol of power. We've heard lullabies whispered in ancient marketplaces, and we've followed footsteps into moonlit courtyards where lovers shared final words before parting for the night. It's funny at first glance, these rituals and beliefs might seem quaint, even strange, but the deeper we looked, the more we realized they're not so different from us. We still look for ways to make the night softer. We still want our last thoughts before sleep to be gentle ones. We still want to wake in the morning feeling renewed. And maybe, just maybe, we still carry pieces of those ancient nights in the way we live now. Think about it. When you light a candle, you're echoing thousands of years of human habit. When you hum to yourself in the dark, you're doing what people did long before history was written down. Even when you curl up under your blanket, you're part of a chain, a long, unbroken thread of people who, every night, looked for warmth, comfort, and safety before surrendering to dreams. But here's the thing. I hope you take with you from this story. Those people, the shepherds, queens, fishermen, farmers, monks, merchants, they weren't so far away from you. Their hopes, fears, and small bedtime comforts were born of the same human heart that beats in your chest now. The distance of centuries doesn't erase the sameness of our need for rest. As we end this tale, I imagine you right now, perhaps lying in your own quiet space. Maybe the room is dim, maybe it's lit by the glow of a screen. Maybe you can hear the hum of a fan or the faint sound of traffic outside. Whatever your night sounds like, I hope it feels a little different after traveling so far back in time. Perhaps you now picture the weight of a woolen blanket on your shoulders, the way a medieval villager might have felt it. Or perhaps you imagine a Roman noble reclining on a marble bench, the scent of perfumed oil filling the air before sleep. Or perhaps you see yourself in the middle of a tiny desert village, under a sky spilling over with stars, where sleep comes easily because the night feels eternal. The truth is, the world we live in doesn't often invite us to pause. We race, we scroll, we count the hours left before morning. But these old stories, they remind us that slowing down is not only possible, it's a skill we've always had. So tonight, as you drift into your own dreams, remember the ones who came before. Remember the simple rituals that shaped their nights, and maybe create your own. Maybe tonight you put your phone aside earlier. Maybe you light a candle, take a breath, and let the quiet grow just a little bigger around you. Maybe you even tell yourself a story, your own story, before your eyes close. And when morning comes, I hope you wake not only rested, but also a little more connected to this vast, unbroken history we share. Now, before we say goodnight, let's make a small promise between us. You'll keep listening, and I'll keep telling. We'll keep walking down these hidden corridors of time, opening doors into forgotten rooms, dusting off the small human moments that make history feel alive. You'll bring your patience and your imagination, and I'll bring my words and my curiosity. Because there are so many more nights to travel through, so many more firesides to sit beside, so many more dreams to follow until morning. Thank you truly for letting me guide you through this one. Your time, your attention, your willingness to journey far without moving from where you are. Those are rare gifts, and I don't take them lightly. May your night be soft. May your dreams be kind. And may you always find, even in the busiest days, a little pocket of peace where you can simply rest. Good night, traveler. Until our next story.